Senator Curtis, I would imagine you see this all from a different perspective, so I wanted to get some idea from you, as you've observed in your life, obviously not an African-American person, but what's been your observation of how America has dealt with race during your lifetime?
Thank you, Jason. So, I appreciated the biography. I am not from Utah. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My mother was an art student at the Pittsburgh Art Institute. I am, by definition, a bastard. I'm a lucky bastard, but I am a bastard child. A lot of people think that for other reasons, but
I'll agree with you.
but let me just say this. My mother, thank you. Let me just say this. I came home. My grandmother was also a single mother. It's a working class just outside of Pittsburgh, across from the Heinz ketchup manufacturing facility there, the factory. And I was a German, settled by Germans who had immigrated to the United States through Ellis Island and into Pittsburgh. My grandma's landlord, Irma Hinkle, her father built the home that we were renting. My grandmother was renting. And I would just say this, color of skin notwithstanding, if you have grown up and you've had the power shut off, if you've grown up and you've gone to sleep hungry, if you've grown up and your mother doesn't want to live with her mother anymore, so you go to different school districts multiple times a year in the same school year where you have to make friends. If you've gone to bed hungry, and when you fall asleep, that's a way to stop being hungry, is to fall asleep. If you've lived through those experiences, I'm not tracking why, purely based on the color of skin, I'm an oppressor, and people that are a different color than me would be the oppressed. Have I seen racism? You better believe it. What I fear in the discussion that's happening in 2020 especially, is that if we spread this across every person based on color alone, white or black, people will be defensive of that because they won't see themselves as oppressors or racist inherently. And there are people that are racist on purpose, that have hate in their heart. There's people that, through ignorance, not used to something that's different than themselves, will react differently. And that's not reserved just for race, by the way. If you're of a different faith and you live in a predominantly a different faith, when you don't share that faith, you're just different. And there are human reactions to being different that aren't always positive. And the way we change that is that we get to know each other. You have friends that don't look exactly like you. I thought about tonight when I was coming here, I have friends of every race, color, creed. But I have a very difficult time identifying the friends that I have who would be black. Because I've never seen them that way. And I almost find it condescending to talk about these dear friends of mine and what they've gone through by the color of their skin. I have a black friend. Am I supposed to check that box now?
Come on.
I don't want to do that. I won't do that. Okay? But what I'll tell you is, the American dream is real. The trials that we may face inform who we are and help shape the decisions we make. And one of my greatest fears is that if I grew up the way I just described, that I've been married almost 28 years to my wife, and my children have lived in 2 homes, and have gone to the same school district their whole lives, and now my youngest is a senior in high school. I have told my children, don't let anyone ever tell you that the way you grew up makes you a bad person. That you for some reason, the way you have grown up has given you some superiority over anyone else, because you are not superior to anyone else. But I didn't fight, and I didn't work so hard for my children to have a different upbringing than what I had. I don't know what it's like to live in a 2-parent home. I've raised my 3 children in a 2-parent home, but I had no track record of it. I didn't know what it looked like. I never lived a day in it. I was raised by my grandmother, my aunt, and my mother. That's who I was raised by. Every time we start talking and we start just broad brushing everyone just simply by skin color and color alone, you will find that people will reject racism. And we can't do that because they won't see it. They'll be defensive because they don't feel it in their hearts. We have to identify those moments when people treat each other differently when they shouldn't. And I've seen them, and I've lived through it. And I've had friends that were treated worse because of who they are, and I've defended them. And it boils my blood. But if you broad brush it, and you attach everyone to one side or the other, I don't think we're going to do what Rosa Parks said, her lips to my ears at the BYU campus in the 90s, she was asked specifically about affirmative action, and she said, I believe people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I heard her say that. I heard it. Okay? I didn't read it. I heard her say that. I come from the school, Jason, of Martin Luther King. That there's a day where we don't draw those distinctions, and we don't see each other different, because we are a melting pot. A country that's a melting pot is the one place where you really can divide people in a harmful way, because we are so different. But on purpose, by design. And by the way, and this is the last thing I'll say, we saw this tonight, and that's history, and I'll prove it to you. We don't identify with what we watched in that debate, and I'll tell you why. At the time of that debate, the Democrat Party, party of George Wallace, Alabama's governor, they were like this with the Ku Klux Klan, and much of the racism happening in America at that time, you could draw a straight line to the Democrat Party, and I'm willing to bet that people that identify as Democrats right now want nothing to do with what the party looked like back then in the 60s back then, okay? William F. Buckley, I am the furthest thing from a Yale guy you're ever going to meet, okay? So, the only thing that William F. Buckley said in that debate that really resonated with me was that we cannot give up on the American dream, because the American dream is going to be the vehicle to lift more people out of poverty in their circumstances than any government program, collectively all government programs put together. So let's see it for what it is. Let's take the inventory where we've come since that debate has occurred, and then let's move on. So I'm on not the Malcolm X side, but on the Martin Luther King side. On we have to start seeing each other as brothers and sisters, without regard to color of skin.